BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor and take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. In today's episode of the BTB Project, my guest is currently the men's tennis coach at the New Jersey Institute of Technology. His coaching journey began with an impressive college playing career, which included 2 Division II NCAA national championships at West Florida. His coaching experience extends to renowned programs like Arizona, Baylor, and also Columbia University. In his dynamic coaching career, filled with notable achievements and a passion for the game, it will inspire you as the listener. From early triumphs as a player to coaching stints at prestigious universities and a group management role at the Everett Tennis Academy in Florida, his expertise shines. This conversation promises to inspire exploration of a journey in the world of college tennis. Marco Matteucci, welcome to the BTB Project.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gerhardt. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
Well, the BTB Project, again, has another exciting guest, and I'm just really intrigued to dive into your story and just the impact of lives that you've had as a coach and your own personal journey with an impressive, 2-time Division II national champion. Just at a roadmap that has a lot of twists and turns that I know a lot of college coaches, when they grind hard. And I'm just really excited to introduce Marco Matteucci to the BTB Project. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, I want to dive right into how you and I are talking right now is, I recently had a guest of mine that was a tremendous Colorado tennis icon at the junior level and went on and had some college tennis at Vanderbilt and then found herself at Baylor. And from my understanding, at this point in your journey, you were an assistant women's tennis volunteer for that program. And I'd love for you just to walk the listeners through what that moment meant for you at Baylor and what it was like meeting Alex for the first time.
Yeah, Baylor was great. I went there because I was at a point in my career that I needed something more. And I was put in charge almost of the seniors.
Okay.
So when I got there, Joey Servano saw that I had certain qualities that would be good for certain players. And he always broke down certain things. And I ended up spending a lot of time with Alex, Jordan Samford, especially, that played there at that time, all of them seniors, Alex Clay. Somehow, some way, I gave them just a different perspective on what was a hardcore program.
Yeah, and when you say, hardcore program, one thing that Alex was highlighting with your skill set and your coaching style is that you had this unbelievable way of being very even keel and, emotionally stable in some of the high emotional moments of a college tennis season. and you made things simple. I would just love for you to talk about your coaching style and maybe why you were signed to that group of girls at Baylor, because that sounds like that might be the moment where it could be the most stressful emotionally.
I don't think that it was something that I was like assigned to. It just kind of happened to fall into place.
Right.
Where you know, I just it just fell into place. You know, very simple.
Excellent.
That you know, at that point in my career, I was an extremely positive person with a view of grandeur, of how your life should be. And positivity and the way that you walk through life is always a big factor in how you analyze it. So what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on what goes wrong? Or are you going to focus on what goes right? And how do you enhance what goes right through, again, happiness, trying to get 2% better every day? So it's really simple. There's nothing too elaborate about it. It's just like, how do you want to wake up every day? How do you want to contribute to your own personal life? If you were in a reality show, how would you want the world to view you in this small world of college tennis? So do you want to be the person that complains every 5 minutes? Or do you want to be the person that you see them turn around, head up, breathe, focus, come back to the present moment? And so that's a big thing that I always talk about with my players is, you know, how do you want to be seen if you were on this world that now is encompassed by social media and reality TV? And I grew up with the first reality TV, which was like the Real World MTV.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, when MTV, you could watch music videos, right?
I've seen the progress of what a camera being put on you does to people, and how do you want to be seen? So I think that attracting what you want by doing the right thing and having a positive mentality, and a present moment mentality is one of the things that at that time I think helped open their eyes to a different type of coaching. That's all.
It's well said. And there's a few things that I took away from what you just said that I can relate to with my coaching style. I've been heavily involved in high school coaching here in Colorado with some pretty elite programs. And I use a term a little bit different. I want to kind of get your 2 cents, well, literally 2% of why it's 2%. As I always tell kids, I'm just looking to get 1% better each and every day. What is the 2% meaning? I'm just curious.
Well, it's just the terminology.
Yeah.
It could have been 5%. It's that simple, because when you start to go overboard and not think about how am I waking up today and what am I doing today that makes my life different, we're never always going to be able to go forward drastically every day. But all we can do is be able to wake up, be happy, go to sleep, be happy in some sort of phase. And what did you do? Did you achieve something? Yeah, because there's many things that we do throughout the day, and we're going to fail constantly at certain things. Whether it's failing is not a word. You could fail by simply like, oh, shoot, I forgot my keys.
Right.
You know? So are you going to take that as getting pissed every time? Or are you going to say, all right, I forgot my keys. Let me go back in the house, grab my keys, and come back out. So again, that's kind of the similarity that I would say. Yeah.
And I also attest to positive and negative energy, right? It takes the same amount of energy to be positive as it takes to be negative. So why not find a way to channel that energy to be positive? And I'm having that conversation often because especially with social media, especially with the lack of the ability to maintain attention. I mean, when I was able to talk to Alex on the podcast, she was very adamant when she's training her players, the number one epidemic in her program right now is boredom. So I wanted to get your 2 cents on, do you have kids that are currently in your program that maybe become disinterested quickly, and that's why you always see transfer portal and all sorts of crazy things? But I'd love to get your 2 cents on the boredom epidemic.
It's funny. In whatever it is, 14 years of being in college tennis, I've only had one player transfer on me. So at NJIT right now, especially on the men's side, if you're talking about money and scholarship, then yeah, people think about transferring, but that's the only reason. It doesn't have anything to do with the culture, what's going on. I've been fortunate to be part of a lot of really good teams, fall into a lot of really good players that were down to earth, that saw the bigger picture, that were happy. But also I fell into jobs that a lot of times needed some sort of restructuring.
Okay.
Or needed some sort of push. And that's starting from like my Columbia years, my first assistant job at Columbia, Eileen Weintraub, which was an acquaintance of mine as in juniors, because we were both from New York City. We didn't know each other well, but we kind of knew of each other. She got the head women's job at Columbia, and I came on board after that as her assistant. It's again, we were rebuilding a program that had gone, 2-18, whatever it was. And, in 2 years, we turned it around. And then 2 years later, she won her first, Ivy League championship in 13, and then I went to UT Arlington, and again, same thing. Some of the players weren't necessarily happy, and somehow the thought process that I brought in was able to, help. And we got to 41 in the country with the women.
Yeah.
My second year there, and then Baylor, same thing. They were down the year before I got there. Hopefully I came in and I helped. I certainly didn't lead, but I certainly helped. I would like to think. So again, it's always a process. So I've been always put in that kind of similar position, and NJIT was the same.
Yeah.
And so when I got here, the guys were excited. They were like, okay, we got somebody new, young, fresh. We're willing to give them a chance and put it out there. And, we had a great season last year in my second year.
Yeah, and I know that Alex was very happy to see you land there at NJIT, and just being able to lead a program and have the success that you've had. It truly speaks for itself, and only one transfer in 14 years is also very impressive. And I want to dive deeper into your coaching background, but I'd love to hit a little bit on how you grew up. It sounds like, did you grow up back in New York? Is that correct?
I was born in New York.
Gotcha.
But Long Island, and but I moved to Italy when I was 3. So I lived in Italy till I was 14. So actually, I learned how to read and write Italian before I can read and write English. But I spoke English in the house.
Wow.
I started playing tennis there. Had some great young, great coaches that saw potential. So I spent a lot of time on the court while I was in Italy. Came back here when I was 14. And again, I moved back to New York City, in Queens.
Okay.
Went to high school in Queens. And then after that, after high school, I had gotten an injury my senior year, which took me out almost the entire year.
Oh, man.
And went to walk on for Florida Atlantic.
So at that point, was the injury, did you have looks at that point? Were you being recruited, or was it?
I was being recruited locally, your Fordhams, your, people around the area, New York, and stuff like that. And then after the whole thing with my knee, it was kind of like done. Like, I was actually about to go to University of Louisville, and just again, trying to work on because of that time. And I didn't end up going. And I went to Florida Atlantic. At that time, they were actually really good, very similar, if not better, I think they were like 25 or 28 in the country at one point with, oh God, I can't remember the coach's name, Mike. He was at Tulsa for years,
Yeah.
but he's been out of college tennis. But anyway, after not Florida Atlantic, I ended up leaving. I ended up moving back to Italy and just playing some futures, playing pro tennis, playing prize money and club tournaments in Europe because my father still lived there.
Okay.
And just went on a journey, you know. And I spent about 2 years there and lived out of Florence, out of an academy there. And I was, practicing with a lot of great guys, Filippo Volandri, that was 23 in the world, and Elia Grossi, Florian Algauer, all these guys that were 150, 200, 300, traveling with them. Sometimes, you go to tournaments and you're in the qualies, they're in the main draw. So I would play my qualies, get to the last round or something like that, or the first round main draw, and then have to sleep on the floor in their hotel rooms and stuff like that. But hit with them. Those 2 years were phenomenal for me with the coaches that I had, like Fabrizio Fanucci and a lot of the people that I was around. And then finally got back to college and said, $42 first round is not enough.
No,
and,
it's not.
When I even made it through the qualies in Europe, playing on clay. And West Florida was great.
So how old were you when you got back to West Florida at that point?
23.
Okay. Wow.
23.
And how many years of eligibility did you have left?
At St. John's.
Okay.
I had a little stint at St. John's University, but I was declared ineligible, Division I, so I ended up going back there.
Yeah.
And nothing. Amazing experience at West Florida. It was a time where most of us were over 23 years old. We had a 29-year-old rookie of the year at the time.
Wow.
The year before I got there. That's, before the rules changed. You're talking a long time ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I remember some of the battles I had against, JUCOs or D3 schools and coming against some older guys that, had ATP points. And it is amazing to actually hear that path that you took is not incredibly uncommon. But I'd love to hear, 2 national championships, Marco. I'd love for you to walk the listeners through what those experiences were like for you, and did it touch anything like what it was like with the tournament experiences you had professionally in Italy, or was it kind of a totally different experience and something that ignited you being in a team environment and being a college tennis coach now?
Well, certainly it's a different environment. There's no question about that. My time trying to make it and trying to play at that level was more informative than it was successful. And that's what created my understanding is that I'll always be a better coach than I am a player. I'm not that tall. I'm fast. They always said that I had top 100 speed, but when you're 5'7", it's not that easy, especially nowadays. Back then you could get away with it a little bit, especially if you played on clay and you sit 75 feet behind the baseline.
Yes.
So, and ran. The West Florida was a big impact on, my life, but not even just because of the national championships. It was because of the people that I was involved with, like our top guys. I was on and off playing 5 and 6, depending on the year. My freshman year, I barely played. My second year, I played maybe like 15 matches. My junior year, I played the most out of my career there. And look, we were playing Ole Miss every year when they were 2, 3, and 4 in the country. And one of the years, we won a doubles point, and then we won a singles, and we're up on other matches and lost in 3 sets, and at 3 and 5 and 6, and all of a sudden we lose 5-2 to the number 2 team in Division I, and we were number 1 at the time.
Wow.
But you had a bunch of guys that were 24, 25, 26 playing that had already been, 500 in the world, 600, 800 in the world, ATP. So, we were just an older generation that didn't care about other things besides, you get your education, you play hard, and when you have time, you can go and do your thing and enjoy Pensacola Beach, So, um, it was, yeah, and it's part of the reason why I became a coach as well. Seeing the fun environment, the fact that that time you could be a player and just walk on the court and sit with your teammate and coach them through it. So as you started to do that, you kind of like said, oh, I like this, and this is the kind of environment I wanted to be around. So I figured that out very early as I searched throughout my life to what I wanted to do. I was in college almost for 7 years because I did like psychology first, and I thought I was going to go into that realm, psychology, sports psychology. And then, I just figured my life was going to be in tennis for the rest of my life. So I ended up doing exercise science and biomechanics there and graduating with that degree. And it was more purposeful than everything else that I was trying to search for to get out of this world. And, it always brought me back in a sense. So
no, absolutely. And speaking of Florida, where we kind of have an indirect coincidence, is I spent some time in Wesley Chapel at the Saddlebrook Academy, and definitely learned a lot in that moment. That's when Marty Fish was still training out there. Jennifer Capriati was around, and I'm a Colorado native, so as you know, with probably some of Alex's experiences, we have high altitude. So learning how to play the game of tennis, with what you've experienced back east or in the heavy humidity of Florida and on the clay, I had to really learn quickly the tortures of playing long points, because I was a serve and volleyer, so I wanted to end things very quickly. So if I came across guys like you, I did not want to extend points, but nonetheless, I see that you spent some time at Everett Tennis Academy, and I've had a few players that will go there for the summer and train, and I'd love for you to kind of pivot and speak to your academy experience and what it's like coaching those players compared to what you're doing as a college coach.
Not necessarily 100% different, but it's more of a managerial difference. You still want to talk about the same concept, but you have to deliver it differently. Because not only you have to deliver it to the kid, you have to deliver it to their parent, and make the parent understand that there's a process along with this journey, in a sense.
Yeah.
Everett was great. I mean, some of my best friends are there. Jacopo Tizza, the director there, has been there for years. Reginaldo Moralejo that runs the men's program there. I mean, I've known these guys for years. And it was a great environment there while I was there in that short period. And I was a travel coach mostly. I wanted to get out of the academy as much as possible.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of the stops that I make in my life were because I was looking to gain more knowledge so that it would get me to the end goal results. So it's like, what are the steps? And
Right.
At that time, going from Baylor and trying to get back into college tennis, I was just made the offer of staying there for a year and a half. And I said, well, all I've known is college tennis. Let me see if the academy route is good. And 5 years prior, I could have ended up at IMG because a close friend, Dante Bottini, that coached Kei Nishikori for years, was like, this is the time to come. If you want to come now, because we can put you up here, and hey, you can start. You don't have to start from the bottom. And I didn't take that because I went to UT Arlington at the time, and I stuck with that. I'm not somebody who flies off after committing to something.
I mean, it's obviously a testament to your coaching skill set to be able to, either help at the academy level or the college journey, and ultimately, you
Yeah.
know, you chose the college journey and had success as a player. I would
Yeah.
love to kind of get an idea of how tennis really became a part of your life. You
Oh, my
know,
mother,
okay.
just trying to find things for our kids, her kids to do while we were in Italy. That's it. Yeah.
I got to get your 2 cents on what Yannick Sinner's doing right now, because I believe is he from a small ski town that's in Italy? Is that correct?
Just he's from the northeast part, where there's, a lot of, I guess, German influence, if you want to call it, Austrian, and then, um, I guess, Croatian, that kind of area. No, I mean, great player,
Yeah,
you know.
I was fortunate to be able to watch him at Indian Wells this past year, and it's interesting because he doesn't strike me as a typical Italian player. He seems to be very aggressive and kind of, taking on more of that role. I would just love to, since you have such, Italian ties, I'd love for you to speak to what you're seeing in the professional game and Italy specifically. I feel like there's been a lot of good players that have come out.
I think that, the big difference between Europe and the US is size, you know. So, we're looking at a great time in US tennis to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Francis just made top 10 along with Fritz. In Italy, there's more of a condensation. They have, I mean, I remember myself taking one train ride for 2 hours, and then I'm playing another tournament, and then take another one for another hour, and I'm playing another tournament. And, so these countries in Europe, they can sustain, their players a lot more. And that's why you see, Spain with a ton of players, and, France and Germany and Italy, so that's really the difference, is that, these are smaller nations that have the ability to make it affordable for their own countrymen to be able to go from place to place to place to place. When your own country has, 25 to 30 weeks, whatever it is, of tournaments, and you only have to spend X amount of dollars compared to in the US flying from coast to coast and things like that, there's no wonder why, it's easy and for them to develop and get the playing time needed without even having the stress of the travel, the cost, and things like that.
I appreciate you walking us through that, and, piggybacking into your coaching career. I saw you spend some time at LaSalle University, and I want to ask this to try to understand how you manage your time, because it looks like in this scenario, you were both the men's and women's tennis coach, where at NJIT, you're now just the men's coach. And when I was at Northern Colorado, we had a period of time where we had one coach for both programs, and it wasn't managed all that well, to be perfectly honest. So I'd love to hear how that challenge was for you and how you're able to overcome managing two programs.
Well, it certainly wasn't the first time, because at UT Arlington, I was the assistant for both men and women, but I was basically in charge of the women. Diego Benitez is currently still there. When he brought me on, he's like, look, this is going to be a big portion of your duties. Go ahead and work with it, run with it. And I did. And that's why, we did very well. He allowed me to, reschedule the right things and play the right teams that made sense, and recruit the right players that made sense. And, after my first year there, we won our conference. We went on, to be nationally ranked, the highest they've ever been. And so when I went to LaSalle, it was no difference. And it's more because, I live to work, but I live to work because it's easy to wake up and have the passion to do it every day.
No, that's well.
People work to live in a lot of different areas in business and the finance and stuff like that. But when you live to work in this environment, it's different, because you have so much more freedom with what you do, and your ability to schedule and your ability to live your own personal life at the same time. that it doesn't matter how much time you put into this realm of college tennis, for example, because you don't have the demands of a boss that's on top of you of like, boom, 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 boom. Did you not make it in by 9? Did you leave by 5? And simply the happiness that goes along with doing what you like to do. So I think that's the difference. And then so when you go to a dual program, it's like, okay, well, my day is, I have plenty of time in my day. You know,
I see.
I'm not worrying about going to make the extra dollar. I'm not worrying about going to do lessons at a club. Like, that's the one thing that I hate. I hate teaching tennis during the year at a club just because I have to make extra money.
I see.
I'd rather be broke than go and waste, not waste, that's the wrong one thing to say, is to use my time over something that's not a developmental process.
Right.
You know?
Right. And I mean, it sounds like with both the most recent experiences you've had that, you know, budgets, these programs weren't fully funded. I have to ask, when it comes to not only, you know, managing a dual program on a limited budget, talk to me about the recruiting process and how you had to be probably fairly systematic to build the team that you want, knowing that you might have not had the resources that you wanted.
Starting from where?
You know, I mean, let's walk through the journey, because obviously you've had tremendous success as a recruiter. And based off of our earlier conversation, you had one transfer in 14 years. I want to know why kids want to come and play for you and play for the schools that you're representing.
Yeah. I mean, look, it started with Columbia, but when you just look at how you want to live your life and you want a certain environment and, you know, you're limited with your budgets, what can you identify from each kid that makes it similar to either the other kids that you're recruiting or the kids that you have on your team, and you're not able to go and meet them in person, you're not able to go meet their parents, and so you put them through like a line of questioning so that you kind of, you know, say, hey, you know, what do you want to do, what do you want to be? And I think one of the big things that I do is that I never talk about the process at my place as you're coming to college and this is what you're going to do now, and then you're going to go off into the real world. It's always, you're coming to college, and if you can get through my program, then you're going to be ready for life. Because we talk about, if you were to do this today, how would your boss in a business setting handle it? If you're late, would you get fired? Yes or no? If you are not honest and truthful and you do something wrong or behind the scenes and your boss catches you, would you be fired? Yes or no? Hence, would you be taking your scholarship away? Yes or no? You know, I always try to talk to them about what is the real world about. And why would you do something here in this environment as you're young, when you know that in 4 years, if you behave in immaturely, or you're late, or you do this, what are the repercussions? Well, the repercussions are you're going to get fired. And unfortunately, we live in an NCAA environment now where if a player doesn't want to be there, they can just hop and go and skip along. It's not a transfer portal, it's a trampoline portal.
That's what the boredom piece that Alex was talking about is, I'm just going to go to the portal then, right?
If somebody is bored, it's because they're not happy with their own selves and their own, not even their environment, because I'm sure the environment is fine. Okay. It might not be perfect, but then nobody accepts no perfection. Like, everybody wants their things to be perfect, and nothing is perfect. And growing up, you know, I'm 43 right now. We knew things weren't perfect when we were growing up.
Yeah.
But with everything else going on now, that's the difference.
So based off of the circumstances and your program. And I love how you phrase that is, you know, developmental coach. You're essentially for a 4-year period, you're preparing someone for life. You're preparing someone for the real world. I'd love for you just to talk to me about, from what you've seen in today's day and age, you know, who's an ideal recruit?
You know, there's never an ideal recruit.
Yeah.
You know, an ideal recruit isn't even going to happen when you're in a top 10, because they're going to decide, you know, what my journey is going to be. It's like, oh, if I'm top 10 in the country, or I'm 5 or 6, and I'm going to go pro, you know. So there is no ideal candidate. There's no ideal recruit. It's how can you mesh certain characters together that believe in the process, that believe in what you're trying to do, and that are going to be okay with helping you reach that goal. That's it.
I like how it's keeping it simple, because, you know, a lot of the coaches that I've been able to have on the podcast talking through some of the intricacies, it can sometimes be deemed as complicated, but it really is just that simple. And I want to fast forward to today and obviously NJIT and what you're doing, kind of dig a little bit deeper into your team and the success that you've had, you know, reaching as high as 65 in the country. Again, not fully funded, but I'd love for you to speak to what it's been like the last couple of years at NJIT and what your expectations are going into year 3.
Yeah, you know, I came into a program that was a little bit down, you know, between COVID and other things. And I saw the potential, you know, because, you know, you think we're 15 minutes from New York City. You know, we have a train stop on campus that literally brings you to Manhattan in 17 to 22 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so our academics are very high. You know, we're top 100 academically. I think Princeton Review had us at like 41 for all public schools. And it was attractive, you know, when I took the position. I just saw potential. You know, I saw potential. And I was at a point in my time where I was either going to get out of college tennis, or I got this job or something else, you know, because at that point, I had interviewed for Georgia State, where Alex was before she left, UTRGV down in Texas, because I was in Texas for 5 years. So I had a lot of connections there. Other ones, you know, Hofstra and things like that. When I got here, I just, you know, I saw potential, and I took the same guys that were there from the previous year and just, you know, got rid of all the silly things in the program that I felt were unnecessary.
Give me some examples. What were some things that...
An example for that was that, you know, you had to wear a certain color shirt on a particular day to practice. You know, or just various things that honestly at this moment now, because we don't do it anymore, I can't even think. But that was one of the big ones. I'm like, what?
So how do you come into that program and win your first 11 matches?
Well, that was this year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Last year we went 9-9.
Okay.
We went 9-9, but you know, we had great wins. You know, we beat Navy that year, which was huge for the program. And no, I just came in with a thought process and just said, show me your value. Again, it goes back to business. Why should you be on my staff? Why should I hire you? Why should you be part of this organization? Because again, it all relates back to once you get into the real world, if you don't show me your value, you know. And I think Nick Saban said it best when he talked about value. You know, I came in there and I put this guideline piece of paper on their thing, and I told them straight up, if you don't want to be here, you can leave now. Here's your paper and go. But this is what we're gonna do. Everybody bought into it. And so I've been really lucky that every time I've gone to a different place, you know, UT Arlington, LaSalle, this place, even when I went to work for Playside at the USTA, that I was accepted with a breath of fresh air,
Mm.
you know. So when I came to NJIT, everybody was great, and then halfway through the season, you saw that people question it because they were like, "Oh, I miss our former coach. They used to put us on a pedestal."
Ah,
And I'm
right.
like, "Nope." I was like, "Not that good. I'm sorry."
I mean, you're
Especially when you've been in the places where I've been, and you've seen a lot of very very good players at the top of the NCAAs, All Americans and things like that, and this year has been great. My number one guy, Pablo Perez Ramos, is an amazing player. He should have been on a team the previous year, but he broke his foot. He
mm.
sat out for a year, and the biggest part for his growth was actually watching tennis from the sidelines.
Oh, wow.
So he's like, I don't want to look like them when I go on the court, which was, I get upset, I get frustrated, I throw my racket, whatever it is. So it was a big part of his maturity going forward, and had a great year.
From what I understand, you also utilized some mentors that helped with meditation. Can you speak on that?
So he has come to help both of my teams at LaSalle and at NJIT. Like, he literally flies to us on his own dime and comes and works with us. A lot of it via Zoom. Then he flies in a couple times a year. He went to Baylor, did the same thing at Baylor this year. So meditation was a huge part. And so I'm not, again, I'm like Alex said, like, I'm certainly different with my approach, because if we're not happy, you're not going to succeed. And meditation and present moment awareness is huge part of the development of self.
And she mentioned law of attraction too, that you walked her through that a few
That was
times.
about 10 years ago, though. So so myself, I changed a lot. And look, it's not easy to be positive all the time. It really isn't. It really isn't hard. It's hard. It's hard because I get pissed off myself. The law of attraction was something that I was brought onto by actually somebody I was dating at the time that was doing yoga, Reiki healing, and things like that. So I kind of got involved in that whole thought process, but that helped me a lot also at the time. Has my thought process changed since that 10 years ago? Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Because we can't just sit there and say, oh, I'm going to attract this because of my train of thought. No, it's what you do daily. So you've learned to process that concept of, how am I attracting something to my own life? Well, it's not just about thinking about it. It's about what are you doing every day in order to be able to achieve that. Now, that achievement, if you want to get there, you're never going to get there. What is the achievement? The achievement is like, what did I do today in order to feel good about it? Did I wake up and do my bed? Did I take care of my house? Did I do this? Did I do that? Then can I fall asleep without anything on my mind? Those different things. So, but yeah, the law of attraction, that's a little different concept than 10 years ago for me personally now.
Yeah, no, the meditation thing, that's awesome. I mean, that calming the mind, and we talked about that too, Alex and I, that she's been implementing 5-minute meditation with her team. And I'm a big believer in Jay Shetty, who does, good influencer and, the mind, body, that stuff's huge. I wish I could tap into it more.
I love all those guys. Tony Robbins is huge,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity of installing PlaySide in his house years ago.
Oh, wow.
Huge mansion in Palm Beach. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where if you're not thinking outside the box nowadays, it's hard. But I think that's also what keeps me away from some of these major jobs as well, because people don't want to think the way that I do as well, or they feel threatened from it, and that's why, this has been a very hard journey from the college tennis world, because you have all these people telling you that you're not right for what they want.
Right.
Whether, and like I was on the women's side for many years, and that's the hard part. And that's why I'm in men's tennis now too. Have an uprising and make sure that their self-esteem is high, that their confidence is high, and then you deliver the message the right way. Guys, you can just tell them, shut the hell up, go play, you're fine.
Yep.
I do that all the time with my guys. I'm like, what do you want? You're good. All right, go play. It's simple. It's so simple, you know.
And when it comes to the size of your program, you know, I know that 6 compete, but how many guys do you carry? And with the logistics of your team, I know that weather probably can bear havoc. Do you guys have an indoor facility, and kind of what does it look like with the size of the team and your year-round training?
Yeah, we're extremely lucky. We have our own 4-court indoor facility on campus.
Oh, wow.
So that's huge. You know, locker rooms, bathrooms, everything, and we have a city park court called the Athletic Gilson Center that's run by the city of Newark, but the USTA kind of helps them through their fundraising processes, whatever they do out there. Spectacular courts. So we just take the train, 3 stops, subway up, and we have, 16 courts that we can use.
Oh, wow.
16, 18, whatever it is. So no, that is never in the way, the training process. So I did have a bigger team that I would like. We were at 12, 13 last year. I had some guys that were walk-ons, decided to just finish their schooling and be done. Going into this year, I'm either going to have 9 or 10. So I try to keep it at 10, especially because having only the 4 courts indoors, you want to be able to maximize, the full playing court as much as possible.
So, I've seen gigantic teams in my playing day, playing against University of Redlands or Gustavus Adolphus out in Minnesota. I mean, they have, 40, 50 kids in their programs. And I definitely like your approach and, really try to kind of fine tune the smaller groups, but nonetheless, tremendous success, last year and going into this year. I'd love for you to speak to, what are your goals, Marco? I mean, you've seen just about everything when it comes to college tennis and player development and success, lack of success, lack of funding. You've had so many moments of adversity that you've had to face, and I just would love for you to speak to what is the ultimate goal for NJIT.
I can't talk about what is the ultimate goal, because the ultimate goal it's not necessarily there.
Yeah.
The goal from an everyday standpoint is to be as good as we can and to have the pride in a university and in a program that was lacking before. I have a lot of pride having played at West Florida. Like, there's just no better place as an alum, if 1 year, maybe at the end of my career, when Derek's done, I'll go back there. Absolutely. So the biggest goal is really to make sure that your experience here is a championship experience. And if you can have that championship experience, that means that you're going to deliver more for yourself emotionally, and you're going to deliver for yourself in the future once you get into the real world. So if I am going to come here and tell you, of course we want to win conference championship, of course we want to go to the NCAA. Those are all facts that every team wants to do. There's no question about it. Do I want to be at a program one day that can win the NCAAs? Absolutely. Will it happen in NJIT? Probably not. That's just the reality of things. So if I stop and think, I need to get here with NJIT, then I'm already putting some sort of block in front of me, And I just want to say, we're going to do the best that we can with what we have. We're going to give them the championship experience based on the funding that we have, push the limits as much as we can, and then hope that the university understands that at one point and gives us more, or says, hey, you're putting our athletes in a position that they're becoming extremely successful and then giving back to the university, and et cetera. So there is no one goal. Those goals are normal. Conference championship, NCAAs, it's just all the same stuff. Honestly, there are some coaches out there that just like, I just want to graduate students and I'm good here and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to lay back and I'm going to sit in my chair and be like, oh, we're good. I hate that. I can't stand that. because you have enough time in your world to contribute to society, and why not do it?
Where did this mindset come from, Marco? I mean, I noticed the East Coast mentality. It's a little bit more laid back here in Colorado and out west, and I think that hurts us in our tennis games in some cases. But when it comes to mentors or influences in your life, I'd love to speak to what's built kind of the belief system that you have.
It hasn't been one mentor or another. I mean, certainly Joey Scrivano at Baylor played a big impact in my life, from a coaching standpoint. But even then, I mean, Joey's awesome, love him, But there's certain things that I wouldn't do that Joey does. Simple. But so what did I take from him? The same way that I've took things from Rick Macy, the same way that I've took things from Carlos Zapata that was at Everett. They used to coach Javier Malis, and my friend, Reggie Moralejo that was with Sebastian Gosny last year before he went to TCU. And all these people, like, so I don't look at life as having mentors.
Okay.
I look at analyzing people that I'm in contact with and what relates to how I want to feel every day. And if their thought process relates to something that I believe is rational and makes sense, then I'm going to use it. I got out of college. I got out of basically tennis to work for PlaySite for 2.5 years. Yeah, 2.5 years almost.
That was back in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was struggling to get a head coaching job. And I was just like, I'm done. But then I also said, how am I going to become a head coach? And I took the job at PlaySide to work in tennis analytics because I said, hey, I can either go maybe into player development or something's going to happen. And I learned from them too. I was in tennis analytics before that, especially at Baylor and before that. But then when I went into that had a big influence on me and how I coach as well. So there isn't always one mentor. And I think that when people stop and always say, oh, this was my mentor, this was my mentor, it's like you keep on forgetting about all those little things that come into your life that you forget to use. But overall, I just think that the way that I grew up, I mean, I had to move, I lived in 2 different countries. I kind of grew up in the streets in New York City a little bit. My mother, single mother at that time, and, her working, me, taking the subway to school, the subway to practice in Queens, New York, and having to fend for myself at certain times. I matured very quickly. I feel like I went from 7 to like 16 and like overnight. So
no doubt.
It just matures you, puts you in a position where you got to fend for yourself. So when you look at other environments, other people that you grew up with, you say, do I want to be like that person or do I want to be like this person? And you start to say, I definitely don't want to be here. I like that and I want to be there, but where's my pathway? Where's the water flowing? And do I want to take this water or that water? And why not create your own path through picking? Because you can pick off of bad people and things that they don't do well just as much as you can pick off the guy who told you something really positive. So for me, there is no mentor. It's analyzing what people are doing good and what people are doing bad.
Yep.
So that we have our own pathway.
And is that good or bad in alignment to the pathway that we want to be on? I think that's
who I believe is what I believe is right. It's my own personal opinion. And so once I know that, then I can say, okay, do you relate to that as a recruit? And yes or no. Simple.
I got a couple more for you, Marco. It sounds like you're at your mom's place. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm in Delaware right now.
Yeah. So, hearing a little bit of the story in the background, single mom, how you were raised, I empathize with that deeply. My mom passed away when I was 20. She lost a battle to addiction. And at that point I was a junior in college, and I just was in that kind of moment of where I'm a mama's boy. She certainly did a lot of things that were tremendous in my life, and I also had to kind of carry her out of the trenches in some difficult moments that shaped me into who I am today. So I'd love for you just to speak to the listeners about, yes, no mentors, that it's more or less just the positive and negative that come from people in your life. But I'd love for you to speak about your mom and your guys' relationship.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly close. But my whole family in general, like I've always been gone.
Yeah.
After 16 years old, boom, I'm out. I was traveling, I was playing, I was doing whatever. My father was still present, but they had separated and he was living in Italy, and we
Okay.
were all back in the US.
Yeah.
So that's the only difference. So yes, single mother, with my father being in Italy, that still helped out. I'm not saying that he didn't help out, but two kids, myself, my sister. But just it's good. There's nothing much to say there besides, you know, um, she's been very supportive of my career and what I'm trying to do. And herself, she's an artist, she's a sculptor and stuff like that. So we're very similar from a passion standpoint. So that's where I kind of get my passion for things.
That's
It's just
awesome.
like for me, if I don't wake up trying to do something good with my day or influencing or trying to, I hate the word influencing, by the way, or trying to, just doing the right thing and waking up happy every day and living your life through passion. Like I wouldn't be able to do it. Like
Mm.
I wouldn't be able to leave this world doing a 9 to 5 job at something like that. It's and unless you're waking up every day trying to contribute to somebody else's well-being, like I just don't understand how people can do, the monotony. I hate monotony.
Yeah, it's amazing how, when I reflect back to the influence that you were on my friend Alex, and, she comes from Vanderbilt, torn labrum in her shoulder, not the greatest experience as a college player to that point, and just the impact you made in her life. And it leads me to one last question that I am very curious to hear, because I love the thought process. I love the passion. I love how you coach your players and the impact that you've been. But when it comes to just what you know now, I mean, you're trickling into your 40s. I just turned 39 a few weeks ago, so I'm feeling the the hurt of my body and my mind in some days. But you've learned a lot, Marco, and I would love for you to maybe share with the listeners on if you had an experience to go back knowing what you know now and sit down with that 16-year-old Marco and give them advice on, how to progress and lead in life, knowing what you know. What advice would you give yourself?
You know, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now if I didn't do what I did. Would it have been different? It's the same thing as shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Mm,
And all I can say is if you have a vision of what your life wants to be, then just go for it. Just very simple. One of the funniest things, um, one coach told me, it's like there's no secrets in college tennis.
mm.
Like as much people want to say this person cheats, that's that. No, it's the people who cheat get caught. There's no secrets in college tennis. The same way there's no secrets in life. If you choose to be a part of a group of people that bring you down, you're going to be brought down. If you are part of a group of people that bring you up or at your same level, you're going to be brought up. Your environment dictates a lot, and then there are the small percentages that come from very bad environments and that rise to the top because their own personal self-belief and passion allows them to bring it out.
Mm.
You know, so again, for just regular tennis players and juniors, just say, you know, find your passion, find your passion. For anybody who's in our field in a college coaching field, and if you're young and everything, get to know your administrators. If you're not having fun with your administrators and knowing them and getting to know them, this college world is going to get more and more difficult to be a part of. These jobs are getting slimmer and slimmer. They are getting harder to get. There's more diversity and inclusion ever before.
Yeah.
There's going to be people that get jobs over you that don't deserve it. There's going to be different areas, or, you know, I want this and I want that. I mean, I've heard many times from administrators saying, like, we're going to start with female first and then alumni and then this, you know, so it's very, very difficult. So the more you know your administrators and more that they can put you in a position of saying, hey, you know, this tennis coach or soccer coach or whatever is very, very good at what they do. All those other things start to like disappear, you know, all those little details of what a job hiring says we want to look first because they've got a reference from an administrator helps out a lot, you know. So if you're in the coaching, college coaching business, get to know your administrators, because that's something that I didn't do early on. And that's the one thing that I probably should have done. But before, it was about knowing head coaches, you know. Do I know this head coach? Yeah, I knew a lot, but they're not the ones making the hiring.
Gotcha. And Marco, incredible, wise words, and a tremendous story. And I'm so impressed. I think that the guys that get to play for you at NJIT are very fortunate, and I appreciate what you've done to a good friend of mine in Colorado tennis. And I just wish you a successful rest of the summer, whatever that looks like, resting up, and tremendous success.
I start my country club job in a little bit.
So. Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah, I get to get out of the college world for a little bit, you know, and go and play on some grass.
Nice.
You know, great weeks, and do a little bit of that, you know, and make some money.
That's always important, man. No doubt. But I can't thank you enough for spending some time today on the BTB project. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. This has been cool.
Awesome.
So, best of luck with everything that you're doing.
Appreciate you. There's so much to learn from Marco's journey, and it's just amazing to me to see how, again, small of a world the tennis community is, to where a Colorado icon, Alex Latu, ends up at Baylor and comes across a tremendous influence and mentor in Marco. And having the opportunity to interview him, it was just really inspiring to hear his coaching style, his leadership, what makes him tick. And I give him a tremendous amount of respect for enduring the rigor of college tennis coaching and continuing to stick with his guns and leading a Division I program to some of the most highest of success that they've seen in their time. There's so much we can learn from Marco's story. And you as a listener, if this is an episode that inspired you, that resonated with either where you're at in life or what you're trying to accomplish, or maybe even knowing someone that could relate to Marco's story, do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast. Share the episode. Pay it forward. The BTB Project is on mission, and we are doing this in community. I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, impossible is nothing. And there's so many touch points of Marco's story that we all can relate to, and that will help us each and every day. I'm proud of each and every one of you as the listeners. I appreciate you checking out the episode, and take care.